Hello and welcome to episode 9 of Gameday Gameplay, the sports segment of Console Space. I'm your host, Sean Colangelo, and I'm joined as always by the man I envy the most in the wintertime, Todd from Florida. What's up, man?
Not much, man. You're probably not envying me too much lately. We actually had a bunch of school closings and road closings and stuff because it ice stormed down here.
Yeah, I actually saw that. It looked like it was pretty much all of Florida was
Yeah,
pretty cold, right?
yeah, yeah. Got below freezing pretty much across the state. Yeah, and that's bad down here because I know everyone's like, oh, it's just a little ice up north, but they don't have anything to prep for that down here. Like, they don't keep
Yeah,
salt to salt the roads or
right.
anything. So when it gets bad, it gets bad. So you know.
Yeah, it's for sure. I remember that happened a couple years back. Wasn't like in Atlanta. It was like a disaster,
Mhm.
right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
was
they got hit
bad.
a lot harder than we did. I think it was a couple inches of snow in Atlanta at that point, and that was a disaster. Ours was like a half day, like by like noon on that day, it had already heated up and melted everything. But we had a couple people wreck and a couple deaths from it, to be honest with you. So it wasn't pretty.
Yeah. All right. Well, a few small change ups that I wanted to note for this episode. What you'll be seeing for gameplay will actually be from Fortnite. I know, like,
Woo!
most of the time we try to keep it sports related, and we won't do this all that often, but we've just been playing so much Fortnite, and it's very popular at the moment, so we're going to use some footage of us actually.
And
Um,
we kick ass at it. So
we're not too bad. What you'll see in the footage is us winning matches. So
yeah, that's
um,
what we do.
it's good stuff. And also, we have not really been talking a whole lot of baseball, but we are this time around. So let's start with the MLB.
All right, well, I don't have a ton with it, but there's two pretty big trades that affect our hometown team of the Pirates, and you know exactly where I'm going with this one.
Yep,
Let's start with the first one, Garrett Cole. Uh, he was pretty much considered to be the Pirates' best pitcher, right?
he was.
Without a doubt.
Although I don't think he had great numbers last year, though. But he still probably was their overall best pitcher.
Yeah. Well, they have moved him out. Give me 1 second here. They moved him to the Astros, I believe, right?
Yes.
Yes, and give me 1 second. I will pull up exactly what they got back. I know they didn't get a ton back for it. It was like
They usually
a
don't.
closing pitcher, a prospect, and something else. It wasn't a ton, um, but yeah, that's typical Pirates. They trade a good player out and don't get a ton back, and then 2 days later, of course, they make the big trade, the McCutcheon trade, which is what we were going to talk about. They traded McCutcheon to the Giants, San Francisco Giants, if I'm correctly remembering that.
Yeah.
And all they got back for it, I think it was like one player and like money, five
Yep.
hundred thousand.
Yep.
I don't know. I don't follow the MLB as much as I do the other big four sports. I don't know as much about how trades work in the MLB. I don't know as much about. Obviously, there's no cap in the MLB, so there's not really stuff to work around with that. I don't know how they value people like this normally, but I can't imagine trading a guy he was what, a three-time All-Star.
yeah, and I mean, really, kind of. I mean, he did slump. I think for like maybe like the first half of last season, but he was still the face of the franchise. So
Oh,
um,
without a doubt. And, I mean, he's one of the best. I know he's one of the best hitters the last couple of years.
yeah,
Just kind of crazy that they're gonna do that. I mean, it's not crazy if you follow the Pirates at all. It's kind of what they do. Every time they get somebody good and it comes time to pay him, they move him out. It's kind of frustrating if you are a Pirates fan. I would consider myself a Pirates fan to be honest, because I don't ever watch baseball, so I don't really get into the fan base enough. But I have friends that are, and they all rant about it on social media and stuff about how horrible it is.
yeah. I mean, we're pretty used to it, but I think this move final. I mean, trading away Kutch especially for like virtually nothing. Um,
Mhm.
might be the straw that breaks the camel's back up here. I mean, the past 2 seasons, they have been seeing slowly declining attendance. I think that's probably will only get worse this year. Um, I feel like a lot of people. I mean, a lot of people really are saying like this is the move that like finally, they're just fed up with the Pirates,
I've seen
and
that a lot too across
yeah,
social media. People saying that that's it, they're done.
yeah.
Um,
Um, I mean, in 20, I think 15, they had the second most wins in baseball. Uh, they were, very, they were on the verge of potentially being a championship team, and instead of like trying to sign more high name talent to like improve their chances, they just start to sell guys off, and I just, I don't understand it, but to say the least, the owners seem a lot more interested in their wallets than the actual success of the team.
yeah, it's kind of almost like they're playing the Coyotes in the NHL. A
Hmm.
team that has the chance to become good, but makes questionable decisions and is really only there to draw on profit. Although the Coyotes aren't getting much profit, to be honest, with their ticket sales, but that's just how it is. And if they keep going that route, they're going to lose a ton of fans. And once you lose fans, you lose ticket sales, you lose profit. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. I get in baseball, without there being a salary cap, it's all about the owner's buying ability in the market and what you can make out of it. But at the same time, you can't just completely tank everything and expect to still get fans in the seats. No one's gonna want to watch a team that can't win a game. So
Yeah, you should be interesting. Like I said, I do think that they'll lose even more tenants this year, but I think they'll always have enough to stay afloat, which is
I don't think they're in any danger of collapsing or moving or anything like that. But
right.
yeah,
Yeah, no, nothing new. Nothing new for
yep,
the
it
Pirates.
is what it is.
So,
But that's really all I've got on the MLB side. So
all right, let's go to basketball.
all right. I don't have a ton there either. Just a little couple notes here. It was a pretty weird and nasty looking injury the other day. Chris Dunn with Chicago fell kind of face first after going up for a dunk and getting blocked, I think. Anyway, he came down, landed pretty much directly on his mouth, and dislocated two of his teeth. I don't know if that's just the proper term for knocked his teeth out, or if there is actually such a thing as dislocating a tooth. I've never heard of that, to be honest with you. But either way, falling mouth first onto a basketball court isn't a fun time. Um,
Yeah, I don't think it would be.
no. And then the one other thing I wanted to mention from the NBA, there was an incident this last week between the Houston Rockets and the LA Clippers. Game got pretty chippy at the end of that contest. A couple technical fouls. At one point, like Blake Griffin was mouthing off to Houston's coach. It wasn't a pretty affair. Supposedly after the game, several Houston players went into the Clippers locker room to confront a Clippers player, and that is a big no-no from the league.
Yeah.
There's obviously not a ton of proof, but they did suspend Trevor Ariza and Gerald Green to bench players, I will call them, low-minute guys. For that, they got 2 games each. Supposedly, James Harden was involved with it, who is Houston's, star player. He didn't get any suspension. They're saying he wasn't involved. Everyone that was in the locker room is saying he was. Probably an incident of the NBA being like, okay, we can't suspend a star, so we'll give these two, bench guys, low-minute guys, a suspension for the incident and let the other guys get off with it. But um, not a good look, man. I don't know what was said on the court. I don't know what went down fully, but you got to think it's not really worth risking a suspension going into the other guy's locker room and trying to start, something after the game.
Yeah, that's just not smart.
Yeah, it's not a good look for Houston, I'll say. However, Houston's still playing good. They're still up there in the top of the West, so um, maybe a little bit frustrated. I think they lost that game to the Clippers. I don't think they liked the fact that Blake Griffin was mouthing off to their coach. Not a good look from Griffin, but you know, kind of like just the I don't know. I feel like you see the individual egos of players a little more in the NBA because it is such an individualized sport, and it leads to these kind of confrontations more often than in some of the other sports we watch. Maybe in the NFL somewhat too. You see it a lot, but
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's almost like a version of the infamous Malice at the Palace, but without fans involved.
yeah.
Which, my God, that was nuts.
Oh yeah.
I'll never
Well,
forget that one. That was insane.
yep.
But anyway,
But
is it all?
yeah, that's it for NBA. I mean, there's really not a lot going on there in terms of player movement or anything like that. I've been keeping an eye on for big trades or anything. Nothing really going down yet. That's probably going to come closer to the deadline.
Right. All right. So I mean, we're in the midst of the NFL playoffs, so we'll save that for last as usual. So
Hmm.
let's go to the NHL.
I do have quite a bit for the NHL this week. It's kind of a busy week in terms of NHL news. Let's start with the waiver because this was a busy week for waivers. A lot of guys waived, a lot of guys claimed, and kind of bigger name guys. Started off, JT Brown was waived by Tampa Bay. JT Brown is a fourth liner for the most part. He can play third line role in limited minutes. Um, Kind of a tough guy. He's not really an enforcer, but just a big physical player. Um, they ran out of room for him in Tampa. It's gonna happen when you've got such a star-studded lineup, and guys like Yanni Gord, rookies coming in that no one really saw getting a spot, but played their way into one. He got claimed by Anaheim. Um, Anaheim picked him up, and they're playing him on their fourth line. They actually played him last night against the Penguins when I was watching that game. So, in term, Anaheim waived Logan Shaw, who is also another fourth line guy. He's a younger guy, recently in the league. I think he was only drafted like 3 or 4 years ago. He got claimed by Montreal, um, coming back from that one. So Anaheim essentially moved out Logan Shaw for JT Brown. Tampa Bay lost JT Brown. Montreal got Logan Shaw. So
Hmm.
um, one other move, a guy that you and I are familiar with, Sean, UC Jokinen was waived by the Kings,
Oh my God, I didn't even know
and
he was on the Kings.
he signed with Edmonton this offseason. 1 year, $1 million. Edmonton swapped him and to the Kings for Mike Camilleri, who signed with the Kings in the offseason. Um,
Hmm.
Now he was waived by LA and picked up by none other than our favorite team in the Columbus Blue Jackets.
Huh.
So
Interesting.
we are probably going to be seeing a little bit more UC Oakland, assuming he sticks with the team up there. Columbus is kind of riddled with injuries right now. They got Dubinsky out. Sonny Milano just went down. I'll cover that one here in a minute. Um, they've got Cam Atkinson's still out, so they need some help, especially in the forward section. So I don't know if this is a move that Jokin is going to permanently stay with them, or it's just something to give them, bodies to play while they have, getting through the injuries. But it, we'll find out. But either way, he's with Columbus now.
Yeah, I mean, I get why they would make that move, but I mean, I'm gonna go out like on a limb and say that he's probably not producing a whole lot if he's been on like three different teams already or whatever, right? I mean,
Yeah, he's a little bit removed from his days where he was with us as a Penguin. You
hmm
know, even though that was only what was that 2012 2013 season, I think.
yeah,
Um, so it doesn't seem like it's been that long, but it's been 5 years.
yeah,
So,
it's been
um,
long enough,
a lot can happen. He was fairly effective in Florida for a few years down there. He
right?
played in their second line for 2 or 3 years, but his last about year and a half, he's really slowed down, really not been as effective as a player. So, but yeah, it's never a good look if a guy touches three teams in 1 year.
Usually, yeah.
Last bit of news, again, former Penguin, Paul Martin was waived by the San Jose Sharks. He was actually not claimed either. He has made it down to the minors and is playing in the minors now.
Damn.
That's crazy to think of when you think that just in the last Olympics, Paul Martin made the American team and was starting in the American team for the Olympics.
Yeah, I would not have guessed that one.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. In hockey, it seems like age can hit you real fast. You know what I mean?
Yes, yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
you can, in a matter of a year, go from being a solid every night player to being in the minors. Pretty crazy the rate that it does that, uh, but that's all I've got for waivers. Let's talk about some injury news that's coming out. A couple big name guys and a couple scary injuries. Um, like I said, Sonny Milano, I just covered him. He's out 4 to 6 weeks with a torn oblique muscle. He is obviously, um, I think he's a rookie. He's either a rookie or a second year forward for Columbus. So that's partially why they ended up picking Jokinen off waivers. He's going to be out for an extended period of time. Sebastian Aho for the Carolina Hurricanes is out indefinitely with a concussion. I saw what happened. It was a high hit from Giordano in the Canes game with Calgary. Giordano actually got a 5 minute misconduct for that one and was kicked out of the game. Um, it didn't look particularly vicious, but it did. The hit was high, right in the head, and Aho was immediately down and out. So,
Now let me ask you
uh,
this:
what's that?
um, do you think that hit looked worse than the one that got Andrew Cogliano suspended for 2 games?
I was actually going to cover that one, to be honest
Okay,
with you.
yeah, yeah.
That hit did look significantly worse. And plus, it resulted in an injury. I don't think Cogliano hit Kempe, and I think Kempe even finished the game. So, I mean, you know how the player safety team likes to take injuries into account when they're going into that. Now, again, this one was more recent. I don't know if anything has come out of it. I don't know if Giordano's going to get a hearing or not. I felt like we would have heard about it by now because it was 2 or 3 days ago, but we still could hear something about it in the future.
You're right,
But
right.
um, not 100% sure about that one. But
That'll be interesting to
and
see.
then yeah, it will be. The last bit of news, I'm sure. I think I was told you about this when we were playing games when I heard it happen. Philip Deneau is out of the hospital now. He was stretchered off the ice. He got hit the head by a Zdeno Chara slap shot
Oh, that's right, right.
and immediately hit the ice, was down, couldn't move. They stretched him off. He spent a couple days in the hospital, I think, like 2 or 3. He has obviously concussion symptoms. It is Chara, Chara slap shot's nothing to mess around with.
No,
Um, he's
not
hit him
at
over
all.
100 miles per hour before, so
It's brutal,
um,
dude.
yeah, it's good that he's out of the hospital. I don't know how quick he'll be back on the ice. Probably it'll be a pretty significant recovery time period, but it's good that it's looking like there's no lasting, you know, um, serious injuries out of it, other than a concussion. So,
Right.
and then this one isn't injury related, but it is affecting a player's availability, and it hits kind of close to home for us. Matt Murray is taking a leave of absence with his team to be with his family after the passing of his father. Murray's only 23, so kind of a crazy young age to lose a parent like that. Um,
Yeah, I mean,
obviously,
I'm assuming he couldn't have been that old.
I would assume, most guys aren't giving birth to kids after, well, not giving birth, but fathering kids after their 40s. So you'd think you'd have to be in his 50s at the best.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. They haven't released a ton of detail about it. I haven't really looked into it. I respect, the guy's dad just died. I don't want them to be hounding him for information about it.
Right.
Um, obviously, he needs to take as much time as he needs away from the team to get his stuff together with that. But I just wanted to mention it. Give our thoughts to Matt Murray with what's going on with his family right now, and heck of a player, heck of a guy, heck of a teammate. Hopefully, everything they can get everything back together soon for them.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
All right. And then a couple other things. Let's talk about the Cogliano suspension since you brought it up. Um, he was suspended 2 games for interference against Adrian Kempe in the game with LA. The biggest reason that's a big deal is because Cogliano had the longest Ironman streak in the league. 830 straight games he had played without missing a game, and this is going to end it. And not an injury, but this. Obviously, he was not happy about it. And like you said, the hit didn't look particularly vicious either. It was late. I mean, I'm not going to tell you it wasn't late. It was definitely late. The guy, Kempe didn't have the puck when he hit him, but it didn't look anywhere near as vicious as like you said the check on Aho from Giordano. It was a little high, but I don't think it should have been suspendable, to be honest with you, especially when that's going to end a guy's streak like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, also considering that he probably has no history if he's played that many
No,
straight games.
not that I'm aware of.
So I
If he
definitely,
has, it's been a long time, obviously.
yeah, I mean, I definitely think a fine would have been sufficient. Maybe a match penalty if you want to go that far. But
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, that sucked too
It,
because I remember they interviewed him and he was almost in tears. You know, just
yeah, man.
that sucks.
It's a bad way to lose a streak like that. I mean, if you get hurt, you get hurt. You know that is what it is.
Hmm.
It's not anything you can control, but a suspension like that, it's a rough way to end a pretty significant streak like that. And he was closing in on some records, man. I mean, 830 straight games in the NHL is a feat.
Yeah, that's
It's pretty crazy.
pretty much 10 straight years of games.
Yeah, and the crazy thing
So
about Cog is he's not a guy that shies away from contact either. You know,
yeah, yeah, for sure.
um, I could see you playing that long if you're a guy that never hits, never let yourself get hit. You know,
Yeah, like Phil.
Kessel's got. I was about to say Kessel's got a pretty impressive streak of games going, but Kessel doesn't block shots. Kessel doesn't hit very often. Kessel
Yeah,
tries not to get hit. I mean, it does happen, but for the most part, he avoids it. So it's impressive that a guy like Cogliano, who's more of a second line, third line kind of grinder player, um, can go that long.
yeah, absolutely.
And then last two things I've got here, um, Derek England was extended by Vegas for another year.
Oh wow.
He's obviously the hometown guy for them.
Oh yeah, he's from Vegas, right?
Yes, he is. He is.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, he was their pick from Calgary, right? Is that where he was at before
Yes, I believe so.
in the expansion? So, um, it's not a huge contract, 1 year, 1.5 million. So it's not going to break the bank or anything. But Derek England is going to be a Vegas Golden Knight next year, as long as there's no trade or anything like that crazy. Speaking of trades, the last thing I've got, Jack Johnson, defenseman for our old friends in Columbus, has asked for a trade out of Columbus. He wants to go somewhere where he can get more minutes and prove himself so that he can get a contract at the end of the year because he is an impending UFA. What do you think about that one?
Uh, I don't know, man. I think it's kind of selfish. I mean, I'm not going to go as far to say that Columbus is like a Stanley Cup team, but if they're completely healthy, the argument could be made that they might be the best team in the Metro. Um, I think if you take into consideration that the Caps are, up to their usual regular season success, which means they'll probably just lose in the playoffs like they usually do, and the odds of the Pens three-peating are slim to none. I think the Jackets, if they do get healthy and on a roll, could make a pretty deep run into the playoffs. And so that being the case, I don't really see why you would want out if
Well,
you know. So
yeah. Here's the thing you got to remember about Jack Johnson. You obviously have heard about his whole financial situation, right? With his
right,
family.
yes,
So he is in a state of bankruptcy. He only gets to keep for his next, I think, 3 or 4 years worth of contracts, like 370K of that contract. He wants to try to get as much money in a contract as possible so that he can get his debt settled and build up a nest egg to retire on before he hits the age. Because, he's obviously nowhere near where most guys his age are in terms of what they have built up because of that. And
So
again, it was of no fault of his own.
yeah, so wait a minute. He only gets to keep that much because the rest, like, is going to his debt.
The rest is going to pay off his debts. Yeah,
Wow. Okay.
yeah. So,
Hmm.
his whole thing is he's saying is, I get that there's guys passing me in the depth chart, but I've got to be able to prove myself so that I can get a contract in the off season. Because the bigger contract I get, the sooner I can pay this stuff off, the sooner I can start banking some money back for retirement. Um,
Yeah. Um. I guess that's understandable, but do
yeah,
you think he'll be able to get a higher contract than what he has now?
not so much higher, but I think he'd like to keep it at least still above 4 million.
Yeah.
You know, because he's getting paid like 4.3 or something right now, something like that right now.
Hmm.
The problem is, it's not so much that he's lost a step or losing play. It's just that Columbus now has Seth Jones. They've got Zach Werenski. They've got Ryan Murray when he's healthy. They've got Marcus Nudavara. Um,
Oh yeah. I
you
mean, they
know,
have a lot of skill
um,
there. So
I'm missing somebody else too. That's top four guy at the moment. So he's just by them getting younger, more skilled guys getting pushed down to a third pairing role. You know what I mean? So
yeah, I understand it from a personal standpoint, but from a team standpoint, if you can roll Jack Johnson on your third line, uh, that's a pretty good
yeah.
that's a
Oh,
pretty good
yeah.
third pairing.
Absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely.
Probably the
And
best in the
there's
league.
also the argument to be made that if he played well in those limited minutes and ended up making a deep run in the playoffs, that could go just as far for him for getting a new contract. I mean, look at Ron Haggerty. You know what I mean? You
Yeah,
think Haggerty would
exactly.
have got what he got from Toronto if he had stayed with Carolina? No way. Not a chance.
Absolutely not.
Not a
Yeah.
chance. Um, thinking of other guys, Daly. Daly's never getting 3 million from Detroit. If he's not for a playoff run like that.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
so even if it's in limited minutes, if you can get a good playoff run on a good team, that raises some eyebrows when it comes to free agency time. So kind of a double-edged sword, but I see where he's coming from. I see why he wants to make sure that he gets the most possible before time comes up for a new contract.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes sense.
Yep. But that's all I've got for the NHL. We can move on over to football if you'd like.
We will. So I think you're still perfect in your playoff picks, and I
No,
am. No, you're not. Okay. Well,
no, no, no.
I know I'm not. But let's go ahead and
Let's
get into
uh
that.
let's start with one other thing. A couple coaching news before we get in the playoffs.
Yeah, that's good.
I'm sure you've heard this one. Haley is out with the Steelers.
Yeah, that's not really a shock at all. So
Yeah. It wasn't a firing per se. His contract was already expired at the end of this year. They chose not to renew it, so it's not really a firing, but in all intents and purposes, it is.
yeah,
He's already been replaced. I don't know much about his replacement. Randy Fichter, I think is his name.
yeah. God, wasn't he like their offensive line coach? And I think he got
I
promoted.
think so. I
Yeah,
think so.
which is interesting.
It's an
We'll see how
it's an
that works
internal
out.
promotion. Yeah,
Yeah.
but I know there's a lot of fans clamoring for Haley to be gone after that loss to Jacksonville. There was some questionable calls, especially on fourth downs. Some people were
Yeah.
claiming it's Ben Audibling. Some people were claiming it's Haley. So I don't know which is which, but Haley's the one that saw the door out of it. So
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
another coach not coming back with his team. Mike Mularkey with the Titans have agreed to mutually part ways, whatever that means on a coaching standpoint.
Cut the
Um,
malarkey.
yeah, yeah, that's crazy to me because the Titans. First off, the Titans made the playoffs when no one really expected them to be a playoff team. Second of all, not only did they make the playoffs, they even won a game in the playoffs um,
Yeah, it's
with
a
the
good point.
Chiefs. And then they get knocked out by the Patriots in a game that no one ever expected them to lose. So I don't see how that's a fireable game for a coach. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a bit of a head scratcher. Um, but
Unless there was something else going on, um, that he was going to leave either way, kind of thing. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Before the season started, but I can't see why they would choose to not renew a coach after that season, because that's, in all intents and purposes, a successful season for the Titans. If I was
Yeah,
a Titans fan right now, I'd be happy with that season for sure. So,
yeah, absolutely.
and then last bit of coaching news before we get into the playoffs: Josh McDaniels is expected to be the new head coach of the Indianapolis Colts, my team.
Ah,
Old McDaniels from the Patriots. I think he's currently their offensive coordinator. He has been a coach before with Denver, I believe. Didn't work out the greatest, but we'll see what happens with the Colts. He's known as an offensive guy, and the Colts are kind of built as an offensive team with Andrew Luck, so we'll see if that works out for him.
oh, I just hope he brings his air pump with him.
Hopefully. Hopefully.
Oh Lord.
All right, well, let's get into last week's playoff games. I was 2-2 in week 1. I was 2-2 in week 2 as well. In week 1, I got the picks of the Steelers, or sorry, not the Steelers. I got Jacksonville over Buffalo right, and I got New Orleans over Carolina right. I actually picked the Rams over Atlanta, so I was wrong on that one. I think you did too. And I picked the help me out here, man.
The Saints or the Vikings?
No, the Chiefs over the Titans.
Oh, right.
And we got that one wrong. I'm pretty sure we had all the same picks in week 1. I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure we agreed on all those games. So last week, I was 2-2. I did pick Philly over Atlanta correctly, which was the quote upset pick, I guess. And I also picked New England over the Titans, right? I don't think anyone got that one wrong.
Yeah.
But I picked Pittsburgh to beat Jacksonville, and I picked New Orleans to beat Minnesota. So.
Yeah, well, the Saints probably should have beaten Minnesota, and same for the Steelers. If you would have told me that Pittsburgh would put up 42 points,
42.
and Rossberger would throw 5 touchdown passes, and they would
And it's not
lose,
enough. Yeah.
I never ever would have believed you. I cannot believe that they put up 42 on the best defense in the league and lost.
Yeah.
That's
That's
insane.
crazy. But let's run down those games from last week. Let's start with the first day's worth of games. New England versus Tennessee. Not really any surprises there. Um, that game pretty much went how we all expected it to. New England got it. I think Titans scored the first touchdown, and everyone was like, "Oh, look at this! Is the upset gonna happen?" And then Brady was like, "Guys, come on!" and just went down and marched
Well,
down the
not
field over and
well. Not
over.
only did the game go how we expected, but so did the officiating. That went about as
Yeah,
planned as well. So
yeah,
I mean, I don't think that would have saved the Titans, but there were some interesting happenings in that regard in that game. So
yeah, yeah. We've got the false start that was changed to a neutral zone infraction after the refs huddle.
mm-hmm.
You've got the incident where it looked like the play clock, or the not the play clock, the time clock hung at 1 second for about 10 seconds
Sure did.
to allow New England to kick that last second field goal. Obviously, they missed that field goal before halftime, so that didn't really affect the end of the game. I don't think the false start is going to really affect the end score either. Like you said, I don't think that changed the outcome of the game
Yeah, but
as much as some of these other ones have. But
it's just the same old like, that's interesting.
it it is a little interesting. But yeah, I mean, we all foresaw that outcome of that game. I didn't give the Titans much of a chance in that one, and they didn't play like they had much of a chance. So, um, going to the second game of the day, I picked Philly over Atlanta in that one. I know you actually had Atlanta in that one. Um, Philly's defense played with a chip on their shoulder, like I said they would. Nick Foles didn't do too much in this one. He did enough to win it, which is what they needed, but he didn't show any major flashes of potential or anything like that, but their defense played like a championship defense, to be honest with you. Kept the Falcons to 13 points.
Yeah, that's the way to do it.
Yep, yep. So that is what it is. We got Philly and New England in their respective championship games. Going on to Sunday's games. Let's start with Jacksonville and Pittsburgh, man. What happened? I know you watched this game fully.
Yeah, I mean the Well, Pittsburgh started slow. They obviously got down
Yeah,
21-zip at one point. I mean, I thought it was
yeah,
pretty much already over at that point, but they did. They eventually woke up. They got going. At least the offense did. Um,
yeah.
like I said, 42 points on the best D in the league. I mean, that's a statement to how good their offense can truly be. But
Mhm.
obviously, that doesn't matter if you don't hold them to less points. So, I mean, I put it pretty much not completely, but largely on the defense. I mean, Roethlisberger threw one. I mean, we said that they were, you know, that the Jags were probably going to force some turnovers, and they did. And fortunately for them, they got 14 points off those two turnovers.
Mhm.
And surely enough, Pittsburgh was pretty much consistently trailing by 14 for most of that game, and that is why I don't really completely put them on Roethlisberger. I mean, one wasn't
The
a
first one
great
was a tip pass,
throw.
wasn't it?
Yeah, it wasn't a fantastic throw, but it was still a tipped pass. I mean, I can't put that all on him. And the second one was a sack fumble, which isn't entirely his fault either. So, I mean, I
Yeah.
don't really think you can put much blame on Ben. I think once they did get going, he had a fantastic game.
Oh
Um,
yeah. Oh yeah.
but the defense, man. I mean, I know it's no longer the like 08, 09 steel curtain, but they still have. I mean, at least personnel wise, they have one of the better defenses in the league. I know losing Shazier apparently hurt a lot more than we thought it would because I feel like he was missed sorely in the middle of that defense. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, again, you hang, you know, you hang up 42 on the best team in the league. That should have been twice as much as they needed to win that game. Um,
I'll
so
agree with you. The defense had no answer for Fournette. He ran 100 yards, 3 touchdowns on him.
yeah, that's come
Couldn't
on.
stop him at all. Got no turnovers off of a Blake Bortles-led offense. Um,
Yeah, well, I think you have to get
you
Bortles
can
a
you
lot.
can say that's Bortles. I mean, Bortles did play a pretty decent game for him, but and probably somewhat of the flow of the game because they always had the lead, which meant they never had to make Bortles air it out really. Um, so obviously, if he can just hand the ball to Fournette all game, there's not really much of a chance of a turnover there unless he gets force a fumble. But yeah, what you said with Ben, I mean, you can't put any of this game on Ben. Five
No,
touchdowns,
no.
over 300 yards, I think. Um, blaming the quarterback for a tipped pass as intercepted is like blaming a goalie in hockey for a redirected shot.
Yeah,
It's just one of those things that
uh,
you can't control.
yeah. Like I said,
So
most of the blame's on the defense and the coaching. Obviously, a couple of those fourth and one calls were ridiculous.
yeah,
Like I know Roethlisberger's older, and they want to protect him. Which is why they don't like to run sneaks anymore. But at the same time, late in the game, they're running quarterback options, in which case he could get very
yeah.
like
You don't even have
smeared.
to run a sneak, but don't toss it 6 yards deep on fourth
Yeah,
down.
exactly. I
Hand
don't.
it off, hand it off under center. Let
Yeah,
Bell run it straight up the gut. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like,
Again, I know the Jags have a great defense, but Pittsburgh has one of the best offensive lines in the league. If your offensive line can't get you a yard, really it was like a half a
hmm
yard,
yeah,
that's a problem.
yeah.
And then, the onside kick was. I don't get that at all. I mean, like, I understand they didn't think they were going to be able to hold Jags to a three and out, but Pittsburgh hasn't recovered an onside kick in 10 years. Uh,
Oh, wow, really?
yes.
I
Your
did not know
over
that.
your overall chances are about 12%. You have the 2-minute warning and two timeouts left. You have got to kick that ball deep.
Yeah, I feel like there's a better than 12% chance of
Yes.
holding the team to a 3-and-out than there is recovering that onside kick. So
Because all that happened was, they didn't recover it, and the Jags were pretty much already in range for a field goal to put the game away. So
yep,
I don't.
which
I
ended up
was.
being the game-winning field goal too.
Yeah, exactly. I don't understand that logic at all. I like Mike Tomlin. I think in a lot of ways he's a great coach, but when it comes to raw X's and O's and planning and you know adjusting, I don't think he's that good of a coach. I really don't.
I've seen some people calling for his job. I think Mark Madden's put it best as, if you fire Tomlin, who do you replace him with?
Right.
That's going to do the job
Which
better.
is why they won't, and I understand that. And I'm not saying that you have to fire him, but I'm really starting to wonder how good of a coach he really is. But
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. It is what it is. Disappointing season for Pittsburgh. They thought they had the talent to go all the way. I think at the end of the day, what happened is they overlooked Jacksonville, man.
well, that's the other thing is you had Tomlin, himself, weeks ago was implying that like they were going to meet the Patriots again, and then you obviously had I think it
Mm-hmm.
was Mike Mitchell was
Mike Mitchell
talking
was
about
doing
the
it.
Patriot.
Le'Veon Bell posted something about it before the game.
I mean,
Um,
that's ridiculous. That's absolutely ridiculous. I
you got
mean,
to make sure you get the matchup before you start talking about it in the
yeah,
league.
you can't overlook anybody in the NFL, man. I mean, most
No,
teams, anybody can beat anybody. Uh,
yeah, and all these teams made the playoffs, man. I mean,
yeah,
Jacksonville was 10-6 this year. It's not like they were a pushover.
yeah,
And like you
exactly.
said, they have probably the best defense in the league. You can't
Yeah,
overlook that and immediately start planning for New England. And I think that's exactly what they did. Now I think they turned it around in the middle of the game, got it together kind of. But at that point, you're down 21 nothing. It's too late. You know what I mean? You've already
yeah,
spotted 21 points to Jacksonville.
mm,
If you had come in and not given those up, you win that game handily. So
yeah, yeah, for sure. It's a shame that I think they squandered an opportunity to get a second crack at the Patriots. They probably wouldn't have beat them, but
mm-hmm.
whatever. But yeah, anyway, so that covers the AFC. Let's talk about
Last
particularly
game from last
the
week.
the Saints. Really let that one slip too.
Oh man,
Um,
even more
yeah,
so than Pittsburgh. I mean, you have a 24-23 lead. There's 10 seconds left on the clock. All you got to do is make sure they don't get in field goal range. That's it. Or they don't have any timeouts either. I don't think.
yeah.
Make
I,
sure that get somebody down in bounds. Case Keenum goes back, goes about for a 25-yard pass into play in the field to Stephen Diggs, and the Saints safety completely misses his tackle.
yeah.
Completely misses.
I
There is
mean,
no one left behind him. Stephen
yeah.
Diggs walks it in for a game-winning touchdown.
It's like literally all you have to do is keep that play in front of you and just wrap the guy up. Just
Why? Yeah. Why are you
literally,
trying to hit stick? You know
yeah.
what I mean? Like, why are you
Literally,
trying
even
to
if you
truck the
just,
guy?
literally, even if even if you just have to hang on to the guy's waist until you get help, you know, just just
Yeah.
just wrap the guy up and
Don't let him get out
yeah,
of bounds. That's all you got to
that's
do.
that was a
It
rookie
looked to
move.
me like he was going for the big hit to try to make him drop the ball, but even that's not the best play because that
No,
gives them another chance to throw the ball. You know what I mean?
yeah, that's
Let the guy catch it, bring him down in bounds. The game's over, man.
yeah,
There's no way they can spike the ball in time. No way.
that was brutal. That was brutal.
I know it was a rookie safety. I can't remember. I think his name's Marcus Williams. I want to say. Um,
I'm not sure, but
he's a rookie guy. He's had a pretty good year overall, but oh man, that's just a brutal, brutal decision.
yeah,
Um, and it cost the Saints what probably would have been a trip to the Super Bowl. To be honest with you, because I don't think the Eagles would have been able to stop the Saints.
yeah.
Um, so
Um, well, actually, now that I think about it, we did already. Uh, we talked about the other NFC games, so let's go ahead and pick the championship series.
we got it. So let's start with the AFC game. We have New England at Foxborough against Jacksonville. Who you got?
I sound crazy, but I'm going with the Jags.
You're going with the
I'm
Jags
going with the
to beat
Jags.
New England.
Yes. I don't think there is any shot in hell that they're going to allow that many points again. Um, and I think if there is a defense that can get to Tom Brady and potentially cause some, you know, problems for the Pats, I think it's
Hmm.
Jacksonville.
Yep.
Plus, apparently, Tom Brady did kind of hurt his hand in
In
recent
practice.
practice, so I think that'll be a factor, especially in cold weather.
Yeah.
It sounds crazy, man, but I think the Jags are gonna pull it off.
Okay. I'm gonna pick New England to win this one. It's not a pick for my heart. I'm gonna be pulling for Jacksonville all the way. I hope I get this one wrong.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, um, I think it's gonna be a lot closer of a game than a lot of people were thinking. I don't think New England's gonna sweep them like they did the Titans.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm gonna go with New England and Belichick's playoff experience over Jacksonville in this one.
Yeah. I mean, I can't blame you.
Yeah.
I'll be really interested to see the total penalties and yards of those called on each side when that's
Yeah.
all said and
Yeah.
done. But we'll see.
Yeah.
But
We'll see what happens.
what about the other
Over in the
side?
NFC, we have Minnesota going into Philly to play the Eagles.
Uh, Considering the Vikings kind of caught a break at the end of their last game and how well the Eagles are playing, particularly on defense, I'm gonna go Philly.
You want to Philly with that one?
Yeah.
It's gonna be an interesting week because we are picking different teams in both matchups. I'm gonna go with Minnesota in this one. I think they're gonna ride the high of that win with Stefan Diggs, and they're gonna come in and they're gonna show Philly what they are. Don't forget Minnesota's defense is probably the best in the NFC. On top of that, I mean they've
Mm,
got a nasty defense too. I think they're gonna give not Blake Bortles. They're gonna give Nick Foles some trouble. It's a Case Keenum versus Nick Foles quarterback battle. Never thought I'd see that in the NFC Championship, but
yeah.
crazier things have happened.
Well,
I'm gonna pick Minnesota to take this one and go into the Super Bowl to play New England. At
but
actually at Minnesota, where the
yeah,
uh,
yeah, that'll be crazy if that happens. That
mhm.
would be pretty nuts. So,
Yep,
but I guess we'll see, and we'll check back next week.
sounds good, man.
So on that note, that'll do it for this episode of Game Day Gameplay. Make sure you check out our channel on YouTube, Console Space. We do this sports segment once a week. We also do a podcast each week about video games called the Console Space Podcast. So please check that out, like and subscribe, all that stuff. Like I said, we'll do it again next week, and we will see the matchup for the Super Bowl.
Sounds good, man.
All right, man. I'll talk to you then.
Yep, have a good one.
Later.